tease them, please them, seize them. You tease with an attention-getting problem, you please by solving that problem with magical transformations and benefits, and you seize with an irresistible offer.
Hello and welcome to MJV's TechInnovation Talks. My name is Alexandre Costilhas, and I will be replacing our beloved host, Paul Cif Duarte, for Season 2 of our program. Today, we're going to be talking a little bit about entrepreneurs, CEOs, a little bit about innovation in retail, a little bit about innovation in marketing and entertainment in general. And who better to talk to us about this than our two very special guests? I'm very excited to introduce them, so let's get started right away. With us today from MJV is our very own CEO, Mauricio Vianna. Hello, Mauricio. Pleasure to have you here with us again. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. It's a pleasure also to be here, Alex.
Our special guest today is the co-founding board member of the Entrepreneurs Organization. He's an entrepreneur himself, as well as an author, an original shark on Shark Tank, and the inventor of the infomercial, Kevin Harrington. Thank you so much for being with us here today, Kevin. How are you?
Great, Alex. Good to be here, and I'm looking forward to having some entrepreneurial discussions today. So thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. We have a lot to cover today and not too much time to do it in, so let's get started with the basics. We'll begin with you, Kevin. I read that your first actual paid job was as a newspaper boy, and that you started your first business at 15 sealing driveways. I was wondering, do you think there's a specific personality trait that leans people towards entrepreneurship? Do you feel that most entrepreneurs tend to fall into the same category of person?
You know, it's a very good question, interesting question. I was born one of 6 kids in Cincinnati, Ohio, and my father owned he was in the bar business. He owned Harrington's Irish Pub. And so he was an entrepreneur. Now, I started in his pubs when I was 11 years old and wanted to work and wanted to see what was going on in the world of entrepreneurship, really kind of to open my eyes. And I said to my dad, when can I start my own business? And when I was 15, he said, I think it's time. So I had a good mentor, and I had I think a predisposition because my father was an entrepreneur, and he mentored me and helped me and showed me how to do things that were, you know, when I was at the restaurant, I wasn't just washing dishes. I would count the money at the end of the day. I would go on trips with him to look at new products, et cetera. So I think I was fortunate to grow up in an entrepreneurial environment. Now, I will say my mother was not excited about that, okay? Because my mother's father was a banker, and she saw me being a banker or a lawyer or a doctor. And so when I told her that I was going to be an entrepreneur, she was a little bit disappointed. But, you know, after having some success in the world of entrepreneurship, she said, I think you may have chosen the right path for yourself. So, but I will say I was very motivated and it worked for me. So I do think there are some people that have an easier time becoming entrepreneurs, others that just get tired of working for somebody else, making them all the money, and they finally realize that, you know, that's how it works. If you're going to be an employee, somebody else makes all the money. So once you're ready to go, becoming an entrepreneur in today's world is easier than it was when I was a kid growing up, I believe.
That's really interesting. It's sort of that idea that it's not necessarily the person's personality trait, but sort of what's around them. You know, they're having a good mentor, being close to other entrepreneurs at a young age, that sort of thing.
You know,
really
when I first started my business, virtually, you know, I mentioned my mother wasn't happy. Neither were the rest of my family, my older brothers and sisters who had all graduated from college. I came along, dropped out my junior year of college, and then I went to banks, and they're like, no, we're not going to loan you any money. You need assets, you know? So the world was not conducive for entrepreneurship in the older days. Today, you can do crowdfunding for your idea. You can leverage, advisors to help you raise capital. I think there's way more opportunities to learn how to be an entrepreneur on the internet today. So it's an awesome opportunity, but those that want to be entrepreneurs have all of the elements are available to them through relationships, mentors, advisors, etc.
Mauricio, I know that you started MJV over 25 years ago, but what I don't know yet is a little bit more about your start. What was your first job? What was your first business venture?
Actually, to be completely honest, MJV was my first venture. Me too, Kevin, had a big influence from my father. So this is interesting hearing you say, how family, how the environment that you were raised, brought up was, influenced on what you became, and the skills that you were able to build. Yes, that gave me, a lot of insights, being, I kind of remember, while you were saying, it popped up some memories. Like I was 15 years old. My father came back home saying, look, we need, at those times, we need to send about 1,000 letters to potential prospects. So here the family is, in the dining room with 1,000 letters, having to seal the letters and write the names and do everything there. So it was fun. At the time, was fun. Not only that, he gave me an assignment. He said, son, I'll give you some money, a small, money, if you're able to sell. At the time, he was running a training, an IT training course. If you were able to sell, some of those IT courses to prospects, I'll give you some money. So here I am calling like crazy, different prospects, and it was a learning experience. And I think that helped me, in terms of what I am today. And the last point, I would say self-esteem. Building self-esteem, it's so important for an entrepreneur, being able to survive, quite frankly, the obstacles that are always in front of us. So
that's fantastic. So I'm already starting to see that there is clearly some similarities here between entrepreneurs and business owners, people who start businesses. There's something there. It might not be cut from the exact same cloth, but they're tangent at least. Kevin, I couldn't have you on the show and not talk about Shark Tank. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about Shark Tank. I promise not to be too much.
Okay.
Out of all of the businesses you decided to invest in, I'm sort of curious about which one surprised you the most. Like, I'm looking for something you expected to be a two-hitter and ended up being a home run with bases loaded.
Shark Tank they're in 15th season now. It's just unbelievable. So in the earlier days, the products and the people coming out of season 1, season 2, season 3, when I was involved, there were people didn't know it as much about Shark Tank back then. It was a new show. And so the opportunities weren't as powerful as they are today. But let me show you one that I invested in, and I'll tell you why I invested in it. And then when I tell you how well it did, you'll be blown away, because it's kind of a gimmicky kind of a product. It's called City Kitty, right? This teaches a cat how to jump up on the toilet and actually go to the bathroom, okay? There it is. And this was used in the movie Meet the Fockers, if you remember.
Yes.
That movie, right?
Yes.
I'm trying to get see so you can see this the right way. This is a tray system that teaches cats to jump on the toilet, go to the bathroom, and then get off. So Meet the Fockers, they use this to train the cats. Now, one of the reasons why I invested in this product is when the woman came out to pitch all the sharks, she had videos of cats jumping on the toilet, going to the bathroom, and jumping off the toilet. And we all were laughing, and it was just, it was crazy, right? So I said to myself, what would all the television shows, the Good Morning America, the Today Show, CBS Morning News, Wendy Williams Show, The View, they might love this as something to have some fun with, right? And so I got on all of those talk shows. I was on the Today Show, the Good Morning America, CBS Morning News, MTV, CNN, CNBC, Wendy Williams, The View. What was I doing? Talking about this crazy item and items that we had on Shark Tank, right? So, and so that was part of, think about this. Yes, it got exposure on Shark Tank, and now it was getting exposure on all these talk shows. We were getting millions of dollars in free publicity. And of course, this product did tens of millions of dollars in sales. So pretty powerful product, and one that I say, took a little bit of thinking creatively to get that out there to build the business that we built around it.
A lot of times we talk about how obviously, there's no such thing as bad publicity, or this product sells itself. I guess what you saw is that this product markets itself. Like, the idea is so quirky and fun and interesting that people are just they're gonna have a field day with it. It's like, oh, look what sold the other day on Shark Tank. And it's like, oh, it's ridiculous. And then we're marketing it for you, and now you're going to buy it.
Walmart came to us, and then the CVS, the drugstore chain, CVS, they put it in almost all their stores, and then end caps, et cetera. So we were as seen on TV, as seen on Shark Tank, as seen on all these television news shows and great shows, and then also retail distribution. So that's how we achieve a successful business.
It's interesting that you talk about retail. Perfect segue for me. Recently, Mauricio was in New York City to attend NRF 2023, Retail's big show. And I was wondering, I'm going to be switching over a little bit into talking more about retail, more about marketing. And so, Mauricio, I wanted to ask you, what were the big highlights that you got from Retail's big show? What was something that really stood out to you in terms of what people are seeing that's coming up in the near future?
I mean, one big thing that we noticed was actually people are very, very concerned about sustainability. So, circular economy, what happens with the product after I consume it, how the product is being manufactured, the supply chain, whether we're the companies are using the right workforce. So following the supply chain was one of the big trends. The second was about digital. How retailers are really bringing digital into their spaces and really entertaining people. So really the going to a store now, it's really something fun that you enjoy while going there. The third one was about the phygital experience. I think it's also related to digital, where you have augmented reality and the mix between online to offline. That was the fourth one. So how retailers are maybe showing online and then selling offline.
So I kind of want to ask you a similar question about retail, Kevin. Sort of along the lines of what you think is going to be the most promising piece of innovation, like coming soon, sort of things we've been seeing play out, but haven't really reached sort of the entire market yet. And also, I kind of want to find out from you, and this might be something you regret later, what you think is going to be the next big flop, like what companies are investing in right now that they're like, oh, this is going to be all the rage, and then it's just going to become something nobody uses anymore.
Good question. Well, in terms of retail, as an as seen on TV pioneer myself, having started putting products on television going all the way back to the early 80s, Alex, for those that maybe don't know, I was a young entrepreneur back in the early 80s. And as I ordered cable TV, I saw channels. And the first channel was Discovery. It was only an 18-hour-a-day channel because they didn't have a budget for 24 hours. So I tied up the 6 hours of their downtime and started putting products on in the early 80s. And this is how I started. But when we were running these products on television over and over and over, and literally some of the shows were running hundreds and hundreds of times a week, and these were 30-minute long shows on national cable networks, what was happening is the retail stores were then calling us to say, people are coming into our store asking if we have this product of yours. And of course, in the very beginning, we would say not available in retail stores, only available directly through this 800 number. And this was forcing people to call us. But after we had something on the air for a year or so, we had built such a demand for it at retail, we put it into the stores and it would just walk off the shelves. So we found that it was important to wait a certain period of time to allow the media to get distribution and get eyeballs. And so after 6 months, 8 months, a year, people were ready, to find this product, right? Some people just don't like ordering over television or even, the internet. They prefer to go get it in their retail store. But anyway, just think that was, was very cool in the early days. So anyway, that's my story about retail. Retail has been, we put it on TV, then we drive it into retail. Now, I will say this, the new model that we use, because I sold all my As Seen on TV assets. I sold As Seen on TV Inc. and AsSeenOnTV.com about 10 years ago. We use digital now to build the brand. We use Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Google, search, right? So we do not have to have huge exposure on TV before we can build a retail demand for the product by using digital. So this is digital has replaced, really, in my world, at least, when we don't use TV, we use digital, and it builds the brand powerful enough for us to take products into retail.
And Mauricio, I wanted to ask you, you've seen a lot of technology over at NRF 2023, and also just in the news, in the media, AI taking over the art industry, ChatGPT taking over students' homework assignments. I was wondering sort of, what do you see as the next big technology?
Well, it was interesting to see at NRF some a supplier showing holograms to showcase their a retailer's product. So that's an interesting technology, because you can actually view the product without actually having, as a retailer, having to have all the stock behind. So this is I think this is a technology that certainly will be used in the future. Blockchain, like I said about sustainability, blockchain Web 3.0, we see this coming more and more, and because of consumers wanting to understand the origins of the product. So Web 3.0, certainly that's an area. The metaverse is still, people are, I think there is a need for metaverse technology to be more immersive, less cumbersome, people to be able to use it. But there's, I think, a very high potential of brands starting to make money, or some are already doing this. But as a mainstream, the metaverse, I think there's still a long way to go there.
Yeah, I also agree on that idea that metaverse is a fun, interesting idea, but no one is going to walk around with an Oculus Rift on their head, or not everyone can afford an Oculus Rift to have in their house. There's still a little bit of technology to go there for that to work. But once you can plug me into the Matrix, take all my money.
I am going to go out on a limb here, okay? And only because, I have, when something new comes out, we test before we invest, okay? So the NFT marketplace in my world has been very tough. I have bought NFTs that have just decreased in value tremendously. My son has bought them. I know there's lots of lawsuits coming out in the NFT space now, that the government is going after people because they may be treating NFTs as securities and they're not disclosing it properly. I've had many people come to me with great brand names that said, "Can we create NFTs out of what we have?" And there have been some successes. Tom Brady, I think, has done well with some of his NFTs. So I'm just going to say that I believe that's a market that is yet to really prove itself as an investable.
I kind of agree. When NFTs started coming out, it sort of felt like the abandoned love child of cryptocurrency. Like that it was never going to really pan out, and it was just going to be in its own little sort of mediocrity for a while. And a lot of problems happening nowadays with legal issues happening with NFTs as well.
We were investing in NFTs and we were losing money, and we just pulled back.
I don't think you'll regret that decision, Kevin.
Yep.
We talked a little bit about how the As Seen on TV brand has sort of adapted to the digital age. Less people using TV. Everyone's on streaming services now. People just watch what they want to watch instead of having to sit through commercials in between them. And I was sort of wondering, as someone who is very familiar with, TV commercials and commercials in general, and that sort of like marketing strategy, do you feel that the younger generation is just harder to market to in general?
In the old days, we would put a product on television and it could last on TV for a year, 2 years. Some products have been on television for more than 10 years, right? Well, in today's world, the world is a much smaller world. And let me explain what I mean by that. When we launch a product today, there's so many eyeballs on it that they're looking to see, oh, there's a new item. Well, guess what? If I get a successful new item, Amazon is knocking me off. My competitors are knocking me off. There's such a quick, people go to Alibaba and find a similar item for less money, undercut your pricing. The world it's much quicker to duplicate. I use the word knockoff. Sometimes that can be illegal or grounds for lawsuits, where people copy your IP, actually. I mean, I've had people not only copy my IP, but use my IP, manufacture it themselves with my trademarks, and sell it for half the price to the consumer. And this didn't happen 20 years ago. Today, people can get into business much faster and be a competitor much quicker. And I'll show you an item. This item, I've done over $100 million in sales. It's an eyeglass cleaner. The first stage, it cleans, gets rid of the dust. Then it comes down, and then this opens up, and it's a double-sided carbon cleaning system that cleans both sides of your glasses simultaneously. And goes like this, both sides, and it's got a teardrop design to get around it, and then it cleans itself electrostatically. Boom. This item, we've sold millions and millions and millions of. It's called Peeps. And all of a sudden, on Amazon, we had 20 companies selling this using our name illegally. And we had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees to shut them down. This kind of activity didn't happen way back. I mean, yes, we did get knocked off, but not by 21 people within days of launching something, right? it's a tough market out there.
I was very curious to understand maybe your thought process. How do you decide? How do you determine whether to invest or not in a product?
I have a checklist, and it I could spend an hour talking about it, but it's sort of, I got like a 10-point checklist, and I'll just share a couple of those because, again, it could take a while. But the bottom line is I look for a product that is unique enough, and it's also, I look for products that are problem solvers, right? So this product solves a problem. It cleans your glasses, but it cleans it in a unique enough fashion that no other product does it in a similar fashion. So that's the first thing I look for. Does your product or service, does it provide a service or a benefit that is unique enough such that no other product or service does the same thing? Okay, so that's one of the things I look for. The second thing that I look for, because people, think about this. What motivates people to buy? When I show them a magical transformation, and if it's skincare, let's talk about proactive skincare. They showed teenagers with lots of acne, and then they put them on the product, and then what happens in 3 weeks? Clear skin. Magical transformation. With Tony Little Fitness, they're 180 pounds. They get on the program, they're now 120 pounds. You see this before and after that's magical. So that sells. People love to see transformation. So I like to see unique positioning. I like to see magical transformations. I also like to see products that are demonstratable. I mean, this product, it demonstrates well. It cleans. We have a guy that rides a motorcycle. He's got sunglasses on. He gets off. They're all dirty. He cleans them. He's ready to go. So it's demonstratable. It's transformational. It's unique in the positioning.
Yeah, and then there's I don't know if you have the experience of also selling services. Because one thing is to sell something that is tangible, like a product that you can show. How about services? How do you analyze whether you should invest or not in a service company?
Listen, I'm involved in more than 25 companies that I've either invested in or I sit on their board or board of advisors. 6 of those companies are public companies. And so I'm involved in a number of companies. And so like one of our companies is a roofing company, and it's a service, and we do very well. We actually, we provide service to people for roofing service needs. We also have a spray that can prolong the life of the shingles. And so I mean, let's put it this way. Let's say, you're selling a service in some kind of area. There generally is, let's take, Stanley Steamer. There's a service. They come and clean your carpet, right? Well, one of the things I said that they could do is maybe add more functions to their service. Maybe instead of just cleaning carpets, they can clean tile and grout and other kinds of things, which they are now doing. So I think that services can also be as powerful in a transformational way as products.
Everyone overuses this statistic, right? But I'm going to do it anyway. The fact that 95% of all product launches fail, and that statistic sounds insane to me, obviously, but when you look back in the past, you're only remembering the ones that succeeded, and they seem like a lot because there's a lot of product launches happening. What I wanted to know is, MJV's done a ton of projects for companies doing product launches as well. I wanted to ask both of you, what is the key to making a product launch successful?
I'll say this. By the way, I in my years of doing what I do, I've invested in over 1,000 product launches, and since the early 80s. And I hit on 1 out of 4. So I'm batting. I don't fail 95% of the time. I fail 75% of the time. So that's a little better and gives me a little extra leverage. And the reason why I think I'm more successful, because I've launched so many products, I turn many of them down because I realize they're going to be tough. And I don't take as many risks as I used to. So I stick with categories that work. I like fitness. I like beauty. I like housewares. I like hardware. There's certain categories that I like and that I focus on. And so I think the key thing, and by the way, one of the things that we do before we greenlight a project, and we don't do this 100% of the time, but we do it often. We have a database of previous buyers, and I can send an email blast to 200,000 previous buyers and say, hey, we've got a new product. Give us your thoughts. And based on how many people respond, what the responses are, et cetera, we can actually, it's almost like an algorithm for us to determine whether or not we think this item is going to be successful. Because we've seen it, if we get too many people giving us too many reasons why this is not going to work, then we listen and we don't spend the money to launch the product. So you've got to have benefits. And let me give you, I've got a formula that I'm going to give you real fast that I've used for 40 years in selling products. And this is what it is. You need to tease them with some kind of an attention-getting problem. So I say tease with an attention-getting problem. Now you've got they're listening, they're alert, they want to hear, they're now tuning in. So you've teased with a problem. Now you please by solving the problem with magical transformations and solutions and benefits of the product. Okay, so you tease and get their attention. You please by showing them magical transformations, benefits, and powerful solutions to the problem. And then you seize, where you ask for the order and you give them, you make it irresistible. So in the old days, we created, if you order in the next 10 minutes, you'll also get this, and you'll also get 6 free steak knives or something, right? So, but you have to act now. So we created these processes: tease them, please them, seize them. You tease with an attention-getting problem. You please by solving that problem with magical transformations and benefits, and you seize with an irresistible offer.
Absolutely fantastic. Mauricio?
I mean, obviously, you need all the, I mean, in my opinion, you need all the points that Kevin mentioned about the unique value proposition, the magical transformation. And we also obviously need, good entrepreneurs. I mean, with grits, wanting to make it happen. I mean, this is a big difference. I mean, if you have, the person who's leading the company is is not really, doesn't have the courage, doesn't want the persistence to go. I think it's one condition. I think it's important for a business to be successful. But there is another one which makes a whole lot of a difference, is being able to tap into a distribution, to someone that helps you to distribute your product. I mean, you may have a great product, you may have, you may transform it, do it magical, do all the tricks there, but nobody knows about it. Where, and that's to me very challenging. I mean, not only with products, but with services. Like this talk here is fantastic. I mean, people, I mean, if you're an entrepreneur, I mean, obviously you would like to hear this, but how are we going to distribute it so that the entrepreneurs really get to access to this? I think that's the challenge. So when you have the entrepreneur that connects with someone that can help them distribute their fantastic product, then you have a successful venture.
The world of entrepreneurship is has expanded and exploded. And I feel we have many more people looking to do, some people call them side hustles. Okay. They've got a job. They want to create some extra income opportunities, so I whether it's products or services, we go across the board. The one thing that I think that many entrepreneurs forget about, and this is a big point that I like to make, and before we wrap up, I want to mention that I think it's important that you create a dream team around yourself when you're building a business. So it's important to have the people that are familiar with finance, operations, fulfillment, shipping into 100 countries around the world, and being able to handle returns and credit card processing and across the world. So getting this dream team advisory board is what I call a major step for success for entrepreneurs, and also helps you increase your chances for success.
Right before we leave, I just wanted to ask you, what are you working on right now? I was super curious about what you got cooking in the kitchen right now.
I don't know if you're familiar with this drink. It's called Celsius. It's an energy drink. And I got involved with this company 10 years ago. We had a little public company. It was a 10-cent stock. And last year, we sold 7% of the company. It was a couple $1 million company 10 years ago. We sold 7% of the company to Pepsi for $550 million just recently. And so we're very excited. This is an energy drink. It's a $7+ billion company that we started from scratch. And so I love this kind of success. And, so I had a 10-year contract with Celsius, and this has been a very powerful part of what I've done recently. And I still am on advisory boards of many companies. I'm involved with a telemedicine platform that allows people to go online, like we're talking right now, but you can talk to a doctor and get a prescription sent right to your house. You don't need to go to the doctor. So for weight loss and many other different kinds of things, including erectile dysfunction even. So yes, I like advising, consulting, and occasionally I still invest. I invest in one company a month, give or take.
I was also curious if you could give some piece of advice in what did not work. Any case of learning, piece of advice that you would give, something that you tried to do, did not work, and then, okay, well.
We launched a mobile app with Sprint as a partner. And the mobile app was called Starshop. And what we did is we went to Sprint and said, we've got celebrity products and they're on this app called Starshop. Would you load this on every phone that you sell? And if so, we'll give you a percentage of sales that come from the app and we'll give you some equity. And Sprint got excited. They invested $4 million with us. We launched Starshop and we had some success initially, but ultimately it did not succeed. And let me explain why. I think part of the challenge that you have, and I think it was one of the founders of Google that talked about their investment strategy. And they said, our investment strategy is that it's the toothbrush test. And they said, do people need to use your product or service multiple times a day, like a toothbrush, in the morning and in the evening? You use a toothbrush twice a day. But people did not have to go to Starshop once a day, twice a day, or once a week. What was the reason for them to go to the app? There was no reason. So we didn't have enough people coming to the app. And yes, we tried to send them messaging and get them to come to the app, but we just didn't have enough people coming. Now, the reason why Home Shopping Network and QVC work is because they're on a cable channel where people go across the channel and they stumble upon it. But people were not stumbling upon our app, and we just didn't have a success with it. So, in hindsight, it was a great concept. to load this on all the phones, but it did not work and ultimately failed. So that's, I mentioned I've done over 1,000 projects and 750 of them failed. So I could talk a lot more about failures, but I'm out of time. So I appreciate the opportunity, guys. Thanks for having me today. And I hope we've given your listeners some good content here today.
Well, there you have it, folks. We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Tech Innovation Talks. If you're interested in our previous episodes, you can find them all on our YouTube channel or at techinnovationtalks.mjvinnovation.com. We also have an incredible collection of articles and ebooks on our website, mjvinnovation.com. They cover all topics related to, you guessed it, technology and innovation. Have a great rest of your day, and as always, keep innovating.